Hey, good morning, everybody. Coach Lee here. And behind me, I have the British National Championships from the other day by Mark Cavendish. I've had it kind of playing past couple days. I've been playing it over and over again. And, it's great to see Mark Cavendish as a road racer. We normally only ever see him in those last couple of minutes as a sprinter, but seeing him as a road racer out there all day, first of all, he's not very pretty as a road racer. He almost looks painful on that bike. But secondly, he has amazing discipline, especially when it comes to just being aero and finding every single wind advantage that he can. Whether it's sitting in, whether it's getting as low on the bike as possible, hands always in the drop. If you watch that whole race just on the principle of, all right, what is he doing now to get aero? It's actually a pretty fantastic race to watch just on that principle, because everywhere, in that whole day, he is just unbelievably disciplined and never loses a watt to anything that's not completely as aero as possible. Great to watch him. One of the things that we know, we're in mid-season. We have the mid-season blues. The June gloom, some people call it, and our discipline can be starting to slip. The discipline from our base training, from our massive blocks that we're doing leading up to our A events. And so I wanted to just jump in and talk about one of the key concepts that I look at in not only training for myself, but for my athletes, but for understanding race specificity and the type of training that we need to do. It's a variability index. Maybe 10, 15 years ago, this concept was talked about a lot. It is one of the key metrics that I look at and examine, again, not only for myself, but for my athletes. And, it's really not talked about. It's in Garmin. You can get it on your head unit. It's in Training Peaks. You can find this metric everywhere. So what is variability index? Variability index, quite simply, is the ratio of normalized power to average power for a workout or workout selection. The greater VI, the more variable and less continuously aerobic the effort. So thinking cruise control, right? You're driving down the highway, right? You get the best fuel mileage when you put it on cruise control and you stop the surges, okay? So if you're no cruise control and you're surging, you're backing off, surging, backing off, you waste a lot of fuel. If you just have that cruise control on and you modulate, going up and you modulate going down, then you have a very smooth cruise control, high mileage effort. It's kind of the same thing, because that is what we're doing and thinking about. Normalized power, another way to look at it, normalized power is divided by average power or average watts. So if you have a 290 normalized power, you divide that by 280 average, and you have a 1.035. The idea is that when you're out there, especially when you're training for endurance rides, tempo rides, you're in the heat of an interval, so your 2x20s, the 20 section should be really dialed in. It basically means, are you pedaling smooth? Are you a surgy rider? Are you slamming the climbs and not doing anything on descents? How are you modulating your efforts? Are they long and strong, or are they surgy? You know what I mean? So let's look at this in another way. Coach Joe Friel, legendary coach. I always go to him. He's my number one go-to guy. Surges sap your energy very quickly and also play havoc with your gut's processing of fluid and fuels. Steady state pacing is a far better use of your energy. Now, that is absolutely true in triathlon, and we're going to talk more about this. In training, that's true. In triathlon, your bike efforts, that's true. And a lot of efforts that are out there, your individual TT, this is all true. So let's look at this a little bit different here. All right, so what are we trying to do when we're, training? One of the biggest things that we're trying to do is to develop our aerobic metabolic engines, right? In training, we're not only trying to develop our respiratory system, our cardiovascular system, our muscular system, but we're trying to develop those metabolic systems, right? And so if this is a chart that I go to all the time, right? So you have, you're sitting on the couch and you're not doing anything physically exertion, you're mostly burning fats, okay? As we move to a higher intensity, our carbohydrates, we start to build up, all right? So if we're not doing much, we're burning a lot of fats. We're not burning carbohydrates. We get up, we start walking around, we go for a jog. We're still burning fats, but we're still burning carbohydrates. Where these two meet is often called the crossover point. And what do we want to do in training is that we want to train our bodies to utilize more fats, less carbs, and moving this crossover point as far in this direction as possible. That's what we want to do when we're training for these aerobic events. But what do most people do as they get out there? All right, so you go out for an endurance ride, say your endurance is 200 watts. Most people, when they go out there, they're going to go way too hard on the climbs, way too easy on the flats and the descents. Once again, way too hard on the climbs, too easy on the flats and the descents, and just ride down this other side. What is this doing metabolically? What is it doing to that crossover point? And most importantly, what is it training your body to do, right? So this is a surge. This is laying off, surge. This is a very surgy way to ride, if you will. Constantly accelerating requires more energy to average a given power than riding that power steady state. So there's a couple things going on here. You're using more energy to average the same amount of watts. This is going to average you 200 watts, but you're using more energy to get to that 200 watts. So what ultimately do you do with a surgy, high variability index type of ride? You're pushing this crossover point back this way. You're teaching your body to burn more carbs and to rely less on fat. In the endurance world, that's the exact opposite of what we want to do. So here's a great chart of kind of how to handle these rollers. If we're in an endurance ride, we want 200 watts. Here we start a little easier on the climb, a little harder on the other side, a little easier on the climb, a little harder, and we keep those watts. And through that process, we're actually using less energy to get the same amount of watts, 200 for our endurance ride, but we're training our body to nail, to utilize those fats and to put off the usage of carbs as long as we can. That's crucial. So basically, what are we doing with the low variability index, right? So this has a low variability index. We're training our body, we're moving that crossover point in this direction so that we utilize more fats for a longer period of time. All right, here's some great tips for how to get a great variability index for your next ride. Well, use a power meter, use a head unit. In the notes, I'll have some links to pacing on how to set up your Garmin screen and how to look at it and pace using your Garmin screen to get that smooth, efficient riding, to get that very low variability index. Okay. So basically, you have your lap time, you have your lap power. To get a great variability index is that you have your goal watts. So say if you're out there doing an endurance ride and your endurance is around 200, then you keep your 3-second power as close to that 200 as possible, right? You're not going up to 300. You're not dropping it down to 0. You're keeping that at 200 as much as possible. Avoid the surges, avoid the match burning. And another way to say it is limit your metabolic cost on the uphills. Easier on the climbs, harder on the descents. And this is one of the, I live in the mountains of Virginia, massive rollers. It's just always up. It's always going down, very few flat roads. And this is one of the biggest things that when I bring people here to train for camps, that is one of the biggest things that we have to work on, is that you don't need to try to win the Strava segment on the climb every time that you go out, but also you need to get speed on the descents. You need to keep on the power on your descents. And I even have a workout. There's a very common workout called tempo climbs that you go out for a day, and then every time you hit any kind of a climb, you do tempo and then sort of relax on the other side. Well, I actually have a workout called tempo descents that you go really easy on the climb, but you go harder on the descents to train your mind to keep going, to keep that, cruise control going. That's one of the fascinating things that when we bring pros here, or just amazing racers, they're just so smooth going over these rollers. They modulate their efforts, and it's all fast, but it's fast going up and it's fast going down. They do a great job. That's crucial. Limit your metabolic costs on the uphills. Route selection is key. So when you're new to variability training, don't try to tackle routes in the mountains. I can go out for a 60-mile ride, and have 6,000 feet of climb, and I can come back with a variability index of like a 1.01, 1.02, and we really want to stay below, 1.05. And I can do that over 60 miles, but it's taken me a while to get the smoothness of my cadence, okay? To go up whenever there's a little dip, whenever there's a little, rise, your body just habitually does it. And that takes a lot of time. So, when I first started doing this, when I first have clients that, have a very poor variability index, we go out to the flattest roads as possible. A beach is great, but we find those flat roads and we try to train your body to avoid those surges in power. Route selection is key. Proper gearing is key. I want to see athletes to be able to conquer some pretty big climbs in the endurance zone, right? So if you're going up climbs, and every climb that you do, you have to be at your threshold or above, or you're going to fall over. Get better gearing. Really try to find a gearing that you can go up some massive climbs in the endurance zone. Now, you might be, 45 RPMs out there. Your cadence might be 45 at 200 watts, but that is still maximizing that fat burning zone. And so that's a big thing, just making sure that you have the proper gearing to do your climbs. When possible, ride your own race. And so this is, group rides. Group rides are the destroyer of variability index and smooth riding. So group rides, it's all either zone 1 or zone 5, zone 6. Okay, I got countless examples of data from athletes where they go out and do a 3-hour endurance ride by themselves. They'll have a perfect, their zones will be in zone 2. They'll have perfect VI. They go to a group ride. Their watts are all over the place, right? It's like but when you race, when you train that way, it's like your mitochondria are punked drunk. They don't know what to do. Are we going hard? Are we going soft? What's going on here, boss? Right? And so that's one of the things with the group rides is that, when you can, ride your own race, okay? So that, and that goes to the climbs, okay? So say if you're in a long road race and there's a climb, pace your own strategy. Don't go really crazy on the climbs where 1 second you're going hard and fast and the next second you're going really slow, but pace that climb. modulate that climb. Start off that climb a little slower, with a little less power, and end strong, end with good power. But, you can modulate that climb. And so, in between the climbs, things might be crazy. Your variability index all over the place. But on the climb itself, you can have a great variability index. Be prepared for high variability through training. So this is very important. So it's all about race specificity, all these metrics, okay? What is your race? So if you're a crit racer, your variability index is all over the place, okay? Because you're surging, you're off. You're surging, you're off. Cyclocross, same thing. And so we train you that way. But when we're doing endurance rides, endurance sports, no matter if you're a crit racer, no matter if you're doing cyclocross with these massive surges, you still need the aerobic foundation. So while, the crit, especially those last 2 months, we're doing tons of intervals to get you ready for the crit, your endurance rides, which you're still going to be doing, should have a very low variability, because you still want to train that body to put off the usage of carbs and maximize your fat burning potential. All right, so that's key. And then, just like Mark Cavendish, discipline. To have that, especially when you're new to training, according to the variability index metric, you're looking at that. You always have to be looking at your watts. As you grow, as your body becomes a smooth, efficient endurance machine, you will not have to look at your watts as much. Your body just will automatically do what it needs through cadence adjustment to match the road. And then that's when you level up. And that is an amazing, amazing thing. But it is absolutely discipline, and, vigilance. And here I love this Tony Robbins quote. It's the pain of discipline versus the pain of regret. As an endurance athlete, we're out there. And even if we're in a group race, group ride, Mark Cavendish, whatever, we've got to be as smooth as possible. All right. Thanks, everybody. That's variability index. We are just touching the surface of variability index. Here's my contact information, Lee@pro13.com, Lee@pro13.com. I will have in my show notes a couple of links to pacing. Reach out with any questions whatsoever. Again, this is just touching the surface of variability index. Thanks, everybody.